Before we get started this morning, I'm going to share something just very briefly with you. It's one of probably my favorite passages and favorite stories in the scriptures. That shortly after Jesus gathers his disciples together and he begins doing some wild stuff. He's in Capernaum. It's a little fishing village right on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. The synagogue that he taught in still stands. The stones on the ground, the pillars are still there 2,000 years later today. Actually, if you go there, there's places where people come by and they will literally kiss there's like lipstick marks on the pillars of the synagogue. It's really quite cool. Jesus is there and he frees a man from an evil spirit and people freak out. Not necessarily a bad way. All of a sudden, everybody from the nearby towns and villages all around Galilee begin crowding around Jesus. And then Jesus is like, he's done for the day and he's done ministry. He goes to Peter's house, right? He's hanging out. Peter's mom is ill. He heals Peter's mom. People freak out. He eats dinner with everybody. And then just picture yourself in this situation. You get to the end of the day. It's been a long day of ministry. And he steps out his door, and there's a crowd of people who need time and need his energy and need ministered to. So he steps out and he begins ministering to them, and his disciples are with them, and they're ministering to the people. It's like, wow, what a powerful night that the Lord moved. You know, you just picture yourself as one of the disciples. You know, you saw so many really, really cool things. You see that person they were crippled, or they were blind, and they were healed, and it was, you're just like on the adrenaline high. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and the crowd has been healed, and there's so much buzz, and you're exhausted from the day of ministry, and you and Jesus go, and you fall asleep on the floor in Peter's mom's house. You have a little slumber party, right? You roll out your sleeping bag on Peter's mom's floor. It was supernaturally healed this day by Jesus, like a crazy day, right? And you're like, man, we're going to get a little sleep, but tomorrow morning we're going to wake up and get at it. And in Luke chapter 4, after this insane day of powerful ministry, it says this: early the next morning, Jesus went out to an isolated place. And then it says this: the crowds searched everywhere for him, and when they finally found him, they begged him not to leave them. And so you don't have to go searching for somebody if you were awake when he was awake, right? So Jesus wakes up before everybody else, and I just picture him. He's tiptoeing through Peter's mom's house, right? He's stepping over John, right? He's stepping over Matthew. He's just sort of like making his way out over top of everybody. He's just being super quiet. He makes his way out the door. There's crowds of people. There's all of these people who moved into town that night, and they're finding places to stay, and it's just a crowd. There's a little bit of buzz, but it's in the still small moments before the sun comes over the Sea of Galilee in the morning, and he goes out to an isolated place to seek out his Father, and he begins to pray. And when the people wake up, they begin searching for him, like, Jesus, where are you? And when they find him, they're like, let's do it again. Like, let's have another round, right? And Jesus says this: I must preach the good news of the kingdom of God in other towns too, because that is why I was sent. So he continued to travel around preaching in synagogues throughout Judea. This is one of many examples that Jesus had the chance to build platform, but instead decides to follow the Father. When you come to one of these conferences, maybe this hasn't been your experience for this one, but at least it was always my experience in every conference that I ever went to, right? Remember in youth ministry, you used to go to the youth specialties conference and stuff. It was like drinking from a fire hose. I'd come home, I'd be fired up, man. I'd have all of these ideas, like, okay, we're going to implement this, we're going to do this, we're going to start this, we're going to do that. And so often, I never really went out to the quiet place, away from everybody else, and spoke to the Lord. Said, Father, where are you telling me to go? And instead of setting up camp like the disciples and the followers and the people who had been healed wanted him to, they were like, hey, listen, we'll put up a tent here in Capernaum, and people can travel from all over, and man, it's going to be crazy. People are going to keep coming. People are going to be healed. Stay here with us. We're going to put Capernaum on the map. But Jesus is like, that's not what my Father wants me to do. And rather than building a platform, I would just rather obey my Father. I went out and I sought his face this morning, and this is what my Father told me to do. I'm actually supposed to leave what was a really freaking great start to an impactful ministry, because I'm supposed to go talk about the kingdom in the other towns as well. And you'll see over and over again in Jesus' life as he drives off the crowds, and he focuses in relationships and discipleship of the few. And so if you're here today and you've had some experience, man, you had some new ideas, maybe we can do this, maybe we can do that, and I'm going to really get after it. I hope that you will. I hope when you go home, I hope we'll all get after it. But I also hope that the first thing that we'll get after is seeking time with the Lord and seeking his face, saying, Father, where is it that you're leading me? Because there's been some people that I've talked to, listen, since the moment I met Bubba and LTN, I've been mostly just jealous because I'm like, man, I want to minister to people in the board game community. Can I be just real with you? Like how can we do that? But it was never what God had placed on me. It's not what God has placed on me. And so there's things that God has placed on you. There's things that God has placed on me. And there's nerds and there's outcasts and there's the disillusioned and the lost in all areas and in all walks of life. And so my encouragement to us this morning is that whether we find time today or we find time on the trip home or we find time on Saturday morning or on Sunday morning, before we go home and we take stuff with us from here and we implement it in whatever we're doing, that we would seek the face of the Lord and we would just say, Father, where do you want me to go? Because oftentimes the guidance of the Lord is for something greater and grander because he lives outside of time and he knows what's coming. And in conventional wisdom and the wisdom of man, the decisions that we make sometimes just seem to make absolutely no sense when we're following the will of the Lord. Sometimes they do, but oftentimes they don't. So wherever God is leading you, I just want to encourage you. I hope that you've been encouraged by our time together. I hope you'll be encouraged throughout today. I hope you'll be encouraged throughout tomorrow morning as well. I hope you'll receive some challenge. I hope you'll receive some fresh ideas. I hope you'll be reinvigorated for the ministry. If you've been exhausted, if you've been burnt out, if you've been tried, if there's been tribulation, if it's been hard, I hope that you'll just be re-encouraged. Man, there's people in your side. There's people in your corner. You're not doing it alone. You could do it as part of a family. You could do it as part of a team. I hope you have that in you, but I also hope that as you come out of here, you'll be re-energized to seek the face of the Lord and to see where it is that God is leading you, your area of ministry, the website that you're running, the live stream that you have, whatever that looks like.